G'day ladies and gents, welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome aboard the Ki-102 Otsu. Now first things first, there is a glitch in the sound in this recording. I'm not sure why, but it did not record audio for this match, so you'll just have to deal with my voice instead. I've actually been getting some minor sound glitches the last couple of days in my recordings. I'm not entirely sure why. It's been noted in the last couple of videos that gun sounds haven't been coming through. I'm going to have a play with my configurations and try and work out what the hell is going on. I can't wait to get this computer, I really cannot. But onto the video. The Ki-102 Otsu, Era 3, battle rating 3.7, heavy fighter of the Japanese, two 20mm HO5 cannons with 400 rounds of ammunition, and of course the infamous 57mm HO 401 with 16 rounds of ammunition. The defensive armament on this aircraft is a single 12.7mm machine gun, and I've never really had much effect with it. It's only got a high firing arc over the tail, it cannot shoot directly behind itself, and it has no defensive below and behind itself. So anything coming up from beneath and behind, you really need to manoeuvre hard. One of the other things about this aircraft, it's not as manoeuvrable as the other Japanese heavy fighters. Whether or not their flight models are accurate or not, I don't believe they are. They seem overly manoeuvrable for what they should be. I think it's a case of compressibility not being modelled to the airframes once again, much like the problem with the P-51 Mustang. However, this one here does feel weightier. That 57 really does slow it down. It will still be able to dogfight with other aircraft, but it requires a lot more planning and a lot more awareness of the extra weight that the aircraft carries. Overall, I really do like the design of this aircraft. Everything's nice and rounded and sloped and smooth in comparison to the other Japanese heavy fighters. It's a really elegant design. The only thing I don't like about it is the paint job. I don't know who came up with the idea to paint this thing in shit brown, but I will be looking for a new skin for this plane as soon as possible. So I use my air spawn to cruise in at 10,000 feet, cruise across the battlefield. First target presents itself as a P-47. It's not what I'm looking for. With this big 57mm, I'm looking for ground attackers and specifically bombers. I'm looking for B-25s, PBJs, if you get very unlucky, an early B-17. So I follow the P-47 around until I spot a BTD-1 destroyer at low altitude. It's an ideal target for this aircraft to begin with. Why they are manoeuvrable, they are a large aircraft. They're an easy target for the 57 to hit. Dove through, I overcooked the dive. Too much energy on, so stand it straight in the vertical, and you'll notice how sluggish it appears into other Japanese heavy fighters you may have seen. It's still not bad by any means, but it's nowhere near as nimble as the others. Quickly bring it around and line up the shot. It only takes one hit. First kill. Unfortunately, I now have a P-47 on me, so here's where the manoeuvrability comes in. I stand on the elevators and bring it around, and while it may be a sluggish aircraft, at around 300 to 400 kilometers an hour, it will still easily maneuver around a P-47 and force the P-47 into a nasty energy trap if it actually tries to follow. Bringing it through, the 47 is engaged by a fighter. I don't have the speed to get elevation on the nose. I do try and bring it around and intercept it in the dive. I fire a lead shot but miss. And right now I'm trying to decide whether it's better to continue engaging this P-47 even though there are allied aircraft in the area, or whether or not it's time to break off. A second P-47 joins the fray and dives in underneath, but I have allied fighters in the area too. The first P-47 goes down. I've lost track of the second one. It's up and behind me. I'm getting out of here. Time for me to break off and let the fighters do what fighters do. I've also been watching the bottom right hand corner of the screen. There's a PBJ that's ripping up ground targets, which means it's over near my base. The 47 puts some shots through and gets some minor hits, nothing too severe. I stand on the elevators hard. Secondary hits come in. These were a little bit more major, but nothing too serious. Again, some slight pinking on the airframe, nothing too much. Loop it over to try and get a shot on the 47. It backs off, and now the Zeros are back on its tail. Bring the guns around to see whether or not I can get a lead shot. Third P-47 has joined. Pop off a couple of shots, but I don't want to spend too much ammunition on this guy. If I don't get a lucky shot in now, I'm going to back off, but he gets taken out by the A6M3. And that was actually a lucky thing. I didn't want to spare off any more shots at that guy. The 20mm I'm not fond of on this plane. I'm not sure why, I just never seem to be able to hit anything with them. I definitely favour the 57, even though it is difficult to aim. I did want to save the rest of my shots though, because I knew this PBJ was over here somewhere, and there it is presented itself. I still have 8 rounds on board, which is more than enough to deal with the aircraft, so quickly close in before returning to base for a rearm. Now the 102, even with upgrades, does suffer from engine overheating if you rely on the wet too much. As you can see, I've put all my oil and water into amber. It does take a while to get there. You do have to use the wet for a while. Once it gets there, it is relatively difficult to actually cool it down in comparison to some other aircraft. So once you start seeing amber, you really need to watch those temps. Quickly lift the nose to get some altitude for a dive on the PBJ. Falling behind, I just need a couple of seconds to get shots off on him. Dip down below, I screw up the aim. The yaw rate on this plane is not great. Burst in, and the 57 connects, blows the thing to pieces. I actually only fired 4 of my remaining 8 57mm rounds, but still at this time I decided to take the plane home, and that was the end of the match. By the time I put this thing down on the ground, it was all over. So results for the match: 3rd place for the team with 2 kills, Ground Forces Rescue Award, 30,165 silver lions, 11,068 RP with a premium account on an X4, and that was the spade in the 102. So what do I think of the plane? It's 20mm for some strange reason are particularly hard to lead. I have a lot of issues with them and I don't know why. The 57 is the same issue. It is incredibly hard to lead and has a very wide shot dispersion. However, the plane is absolutely hilarious when you get a shot on target and it just melts whatever it hits. Not long before I recorded this match, I actually wound up in a severely up-tiered round. I flew out with a couple of boys and one of them accidentally brought his Death Star along. Got this thing tiered up against B-17Gs, and I managed to take one of those out simply by striking the right-hand inside engine once with that 57mm. So, despite its very low battle rating, anything it faces, if it can get that gun on target, it will kill them regardless of what it is. Even B-17s melt before this thing's guns. Anyways, let's move on to the next match. So, now back to a match where we have the sound on, and this is the A6M3 Mod 22 Co. Now, I've shown a couple of videos of this aircraft recently. I have been in the process of spading it, and this is my spade match. Armament for this aircraft is 2 20mm 99 Mark II cannons with 200 rounds of ammunition, and 2 7.7mm Type 97 MGs with 1000 rounds. Now, for those that are wondering, the difference between the Mod 22 Co and the standard Mod 22, the Mod 22 Co has long-barreled cannons instead of the standard short barrels, so they have a much smaller dispersion area. They are much more accurate at range. Now, it's worth quickly mentioning, because it was asked in the last video, why am I being so quiet in my videos recently? My work hours have removed the ability for me, for the moment, to be able to record commentary during the day. So I'm having to record this at 2 AM while the rest of the household is asleep. The last thing I want to do is wake up the girlfriend or the kids, so I've got to keep the volumes down a little bit. So I hope the soft voice is not bothering too much. Now, this was a very short battle, largely in regards to how the forces met one another. All forces impacted at the same point at the same time. Nobody spread out across the maps. I was originally looking at engaging the P-63 first, but a P-51 went high and presented too yummy a target for me to ignore. Critical hit on the way past. Take it through the vertical and reinitiate a dive. I'm trying to get my airspeed up to follow him. I'm hoping he's going to pull out, try for some more lead shots. I'm not giving quite enough lead here, but I have done critical damage. As you can see, I've actually blown off his rudder and his elevator. He has almost no control. He's basically already dead. I decide to break out of the dive. I was sacrificing way too much altitude there to try and follow a P-51, but he dies anyway. But I take a hit from the side, damages the wing. It's only marginally affected maneuverability, but it was enough. Second target goes through underneath. Looking at multiple P-51s at close range, I try spray on one and miss. Stand on the elevators and bring it around. Now, the next target I was looking to engage was the Spitfire. Of all the aircraft in this area, it is the most dangerous to manoeuvring aircraft, and most dangerous to me myself now. However, P-51 presents itself, so I take a shot at it as it goes past. Continue the follow through, and we're all in a death spiral here, a full team death spiral. I've never quite seen anything like this so far in the game. P-51 goes high, get critical strikes all over the aircraft, but I'm going into a stall, back the nose down. There are enemy aircraft in the area, and I am making a target of myself by doing this. I am looking to try and clean up the shot, however, here and finish the job. The wing damage is hampering manoeuvrability a little bit here. I move to re-engage the P-51, but that Spitfire represents itself right in front of me, and I could not resist the free kill. He was dipping to dodge one of our other aircraft, but presented a perfect target to me. Unload shells all over the aircraft. You can see the elevators and the rudder blow off. He's on fire. He's out of the battle. However, I'm now out of cannon and I've blown almost half my MG load. So trying to get my speed back up, first target goes down and dies, and there's the P-51 as well. So I took both aircraft, multi-strike X2, and that was really the end of the battle. From this point, I head off to the runway to get a repair and fix this wing and grab a new load of ammunition, but the rest of the American team just melts before the Japanese fighters, and this battle was over. However, I had another fighter that wanted to come back to the runway as well, and I actually got an escort back to base. He shoots through here in just a second, and pulls into my wing to escort me back to base. So again, another insanely fast round. This one here I came in second place with 3 kills, multi-strike X2, win streak X3, terror of the sky, balancer and bulletproof. 47,125 silver lions, 12,372 RP with premium and an X4, and again this was a spade match. So the A6M3 Mod 22 Co. It is definitely my favourite of the A6M3 series. Why? None of the planes are particularly great at engaging targets at range. The Japanese 20mm are just not very good for range shooting. The long barrels on the 22 Co do definitely make the issue better. It's also possibly the only Japanese Zero that I think is not over-tiered. At battle rating 4.7 it would be an issue, but at battle rating 4.3, for the aircraft's overall performance, I think it's about on the money. Wouldn't want to go any higher, but I think lower would turn it into a bit of a seal clubbing machine. And that's the end of this video. It's a little bit shorter than I normally would do, but the battles during the Summertime Madness event have been so fast. Finding battles to put together videos at my normal length has actually been quite difficult to do. These battles in particular, I really haven't had any battles in the Japanese in the last week that have lasted longer than maybe 12 minutes at maximum, and that was from takeoff to battle complete. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you did enjoy the video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more, fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.